All right, welcome everyone to a very special episode 56B. It's stuck in the mail, and a special note to our new friends in Spain. Mil gracias a todos en España por todo su apoyo y amistad. Thank you for your support on our Rosalia episode.
Muchas gracias.
And
Dios
today we are
mío.
not talking about an album, Casey. We are talking about years in music.
That's right, Michael. It's a special episode. We've done a few of these over the years. We had Make a Super Group. We had, help me out here. Can you remember another one?
Well, that one was Build a Band, but yes, we
Build
also
a
had
Band. Yes,
we
yes.
have an episode on the best album of all time, which I think I would revise, but that's fine.
True. And maybe there's another one in there, but this was a concept Mike came up, which is the greatest year in music.
The greatest year in music. Yes. So, I think about this sometimes because certain years keep coming up looking at our podcast. I mean, we have covered albums from, the beginning until now pretty well. I would say we need some more from the like late 90s, early 2000s. So if you have any suggestions there, let us know. But there are a couple of years that keep coming up, and I've noticed that, and so it made me think like, what is the greatest year in music or recorded music? It's tricky because the album era. It's easy to just kind of lean in on the album era, which was what 65 to I don't know 2010,
Roughly. Yeah, roughly.
and so I don't want to shortchange current years that are more based on singles and streaming and all those things, but you know you'll notice that a lot of our picks probably are coming from the album era. Is that fair to say?
It is. Except if we're to dive in here with the first year, if I can be first,
Please.
is that all right? I have started with none other than 1955, the beginning, as most people consider, of rock and roll.
Cool.
So, this, of course, was an era where the album was a far cry from existence. In fact, a record was a 45, and you only had two sides. And that was all there was. It was a simpler time of soda fountains and milkshakes and car hops and
Sock
a
hops.
music really true. Yes, sock hops. And there was a music that came about that was essentially a edgier, faster, what at the time might be considered a strain from rhythm and blues, itself being a combination of a few things, but the rock and roll terminology is actually an interesting one if you look into that. But at the time, I don't think it would be as prevalent. But down the line, it became the beginning, like the for sure beginning of rock and roll. And 45s like Chuck Berry's first single, Maybelline, Bo Diddley's Bo Diddley, Little Richard's Tutti Frutti, Ray Charles' I Got a Woman, Fats Domino's Ain't That a Shame, Little Walter's My Babe, The Penguins' Earth Angel, Johnny Cash's first single, Cry, 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 and Elvis Presley's last Son single, Mystery Train, as well as I'm throwing in something I used before on the 45 special episode, the Chordettes, Mr. Sandman, and we have the birth of rock and roll.
Wow.
Those are the biggies.
That was good. I didn't realize Johnny Cash was that early, Casey.
Oh, yes, yes. In fact, Folsom Prison is also 1955 on his first album, but I went backwards and forth and I went with Cry, Cry, Cry. I also almost selected George Jones' Why Baby Why, since he's like basically the voice of what we now know as country. So,
Cool. Well, that was a solid pick, man. I kind of had a feeling you were going to
thank you.
go pre-album era. It's hard.
Yep.
It's hard because these are legendary artists, and in some cases, they don't have albums, and so they don't show up on these greatest of all time lists. And
Right.
I'm such an album guy that I have blind spots to this. So, nice work. Nice work. Uh,
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna jump ahead all the way to this. This is fun because Casey and I don't know what each other has picked, and so we're kind of going third place up to first place. So For me, the
Yep.
third best album or third best year in music history, I'm going to go with 1977, Casey. I'm going with 77. Now,
Beautiful.
yeah, so a lot of our albums on the pod come from this 70s era. Let me just read off a few albums from this illustrious year in music history.
Yep.
Of course,
Yep.
this was the year before I was born, a couple of years before you were born. But I'd like to think that I was in some way a product of this incredible, era of creativity.
Sure. Sure.
You have Rumors, of course, Fleetwood Mac. You have David Bowie's
Mm-hmm.
Low. You have Pink Floyd's Animals, which in some ways might be their best album. Amazing, dark,
Yep.
dark
Yep.
album. So good. You have Bowie also released Heroes that year. You have what's
Yep.
behind me, Television Marquee Moon, perhaps the greatest album of all time. We will try to settle that question in our upcoming episode 57. We have Steely Dan Asia, perhaps the best sounding album of all time. We have Talking Heads, self titled debut. We have Billy Joel, The Stranger. We have Bob Marley, Exodus, Movement of Ja People. We have Wire, Pink Flag.
Mm-hmm.
We have The Clash. We have Kraftwerk's Trans Europe Express. We have Iggy Pop's Lust for Life and The Idiot. We have the Ramones'
Yep.
Rocket to Russia. We have Meatloaf's Bad Out of Hell. We have Weather Report's Heavy Weather, a really underrated
Mm-hmm.
jazz era of the late 70s that I happen to love. We have the Sex Pistols, never mind the Bullocks. We have Suicide. We have the Star Wars soundtrack. And finally, we have Ask Rufus. Now that is a year.
Nice. Nice. Well, Mike, since we didn't really plan out how this is going to go, what do I do when I go, this is also my number one pick?
Nice. I mean, I figured we might overlap.
do I do
No,
I
that
just say what you left out and
yeah,
not
say
have a first pick, or what's going on here?
tell me why you love
You did
77.
well. This was my number one year. I've always been into punk rock. This is the year of punk rock emerging in England. This is the year of punk rock emerging even. I'll go down the deep cuts here, and not just CBGBs, also Hollywood. Even though they would only be 7 inches, the Germs and the Bags and the Weirdos put out 7 inches. But yeah, Mike covered almost everything on my list. He didn't include. I'd listed Dead Boys, Young, Loud, and Snotty over Sex Pistols just to be a cool guy. I also had the Jam in the City for the mod punk. I had Elvis Costello also on that list.
Mm.
But yeah, Pink Floyd, Fleetwood Mac, Steely Dan, Bob Marley, Iggy Pop's 2 albums, David Bowie's 2 albums, Iggy Pop's 2 albums produced by David Bowie,
I
and David
mean,
Bowie's 2 albums in '70s. I done talked too much.
no, that's good. I just sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just agreeing with you. I'm grunting in affirmation because of the whole David Bowie incredible mid late
Yeah.
70s peak.
Yeah, the David Bowie and Iggy Pop thing that was going on, amazing. But I was going to say the David Bowie 2 albums, Low and Heroes, are with Brian Eno, who's the third part of this. But yeah, Wire, Talking Heads 77, the Damned album, Richard Hell, Dennis Wilson, Pacific Ocean Blue,
Hmm.
Vibrators, Pure Mania, Ramones, you forgot their second album, Leave Home. Queen, News of the World, ELO, Out of the Blue, but that is it. It's a great year for music, roots music, energy punk. It's a great year for, I mean, roots is in stripped down as
Yeah,
being
yeah.
punk, not roots music, but it's a great year for underground or commercial music, no matter how you slice it, Mike.
What a time to be alive, 1977, and we were not quite yet alive.
True.
There was something in the water.
Yet the influence of 77 can be felt forever, right?
Nice. Well, why don't you tell us
So,
your number 3 year?
my number two,
I thought you said this was 77 is your number 1. So what did you have for number 3? Oh no, you already did your number 3. Tell me your number 2.
number two, number two. So I went 55, 66, 77. I'm an
Wow.
old soul, so
Okay.
you know, sure, I wanted to put 92 and 71 and all these other great years, but I wanted to keep it in order here. 55, birth of rock. 66, birth of psychedelic rock. 77, birth of punk rock. So getting to 66.
So we're talking Blonde on Blonde.
Blonde on Blonde by Dylan. Beatles Revolver. Beach Boys Pet Sounds. 13th Floor Elevators out of Texas, The Birth of Psych, first album. Stones Aftermath, first album with all songwriting credits to Jagger and Richards. Ike and Tina Turner, River Deep Mountain High. Herbie Hancock, Maiden Voyage. The Monks, Black Monk Time. John Coltrane, Ascension. And so much more. Love DiCapo, Who, A Quick One. Kinks, Face to Face. I wish they had a better one in 66, but it's just okay. But yeah, I forgot the most important, the other half of the start of psychedelic music. What inspired the Beatles to make Sgt. Pepper's, none other than the mothers of invention, Freak Out.
Ah, yes. I mean, here's the thing.
It's a good year.
66, like you really cannot overstate the impact of those three you first mentioned. Revolver, Pet Sounds, Blonde on Blonde. I mean, there could not be three bigger albums in the history of rock music.
Yeah, I mean, the album as an accepted format with artists as to how to do it. I mean, that's the template and the beginning. So that's like the Rolling Stones top 500, you know, that's in your wheelhouse. But
Well,
also, 66 was important for many reasons. It was the start of what would be the 60s and psychedelia and, you know, stretching out a little bit.
I like this. I like this pick because it was one of those moments that was the tide was rising. You know, the rising tide lifts all ships and all that. I mean, it was the
Hmm.
start of that healthy competition. It's like, oh, have you heard Pet Sounds? Well, what are the Beatles going to do next? And then what? And then you
Right.
know, it was this, and no one had done anything like this before. To your point, like no one had created these rock, opuses. And even the Who,
Right.
like you said, a quick one, that was like their first attempt at it, and
Hmm.
it's very
Yep.
fun, but it's not quite what they would become. You know what I mean? Like it's still in motion. I love that.
Hmm. And I don't know how much you know about psychedelic rock and how it pretty much came from Texas, including how Janis Joplin, who was from Texas, brought it to San Francisco. But the 13th Floor Elevators, their first album is not my favorite, but it stands out as like the beginning, you know, not Frank Zappa. Like it's 13th
Mhm.
Floor Elevators and what they did in Texas and what they inspired. And I mean, they're the only band ever with an electric jug player. And Rocky Erickson's voice, his scream, his ability in the record community, 13th Floor Elevators are, you know, they're the gold standard there. So, and
It's
point them
cool.
out.
Yep.
You know, like the Seeds' second album came out in '66, and that's San Francisco. You know, kind of, sort of. And Love, second album, not as good as their first, but you know, there's so much music that's ingrained to what psychedelic rock is, and so much underground stuff. But we're trying to hit the true highlights here. So, um, yeah, Black Monk Time. I don't know if you even know about this one, Mike. I don't know if we'll
Mhm.
ever cover it. Actual U.S. Army guys stationed in Germany that shaved their heads like monks and made psychedelic music. One of them played the electric banjo. I found out about these guys in high school in '97. The album was reissued. It was a mega collector's item, and just a fascinating story. Henry Rollins and all those guys just worship the monks. Check them out. It's truly bizarre.
Nice. All right. Solid pick. Can't argue with it. For my runner up, I was torn. I knew I was going to have to pick something from the 90s. Casey and I came of age in the 90s. We just happened to become teenagers right when alternative music was becoming a thing. Um, Honestly, you could make a case here, Casey, for 91. I mean, there's that really
Yep.
sorry, I'm finding my notes. There's that, of course, never mind, but there's that really brilliant, you know, string
Yeah.
of hits where it was like Pearl Jam's 10, Blood Sugar Sex Magic, Metallica's Black Album, The Low End Theory, My Bloody Valentine, Loveless. I mean, 91, unbelievable.
Hmm.
But that is not my pick.
GNR,
GNR. I mean,
GNR,
it's
use your illusions. Yeah,
Bad Motorfinger. I mean, my goodness.
yeah.
Octoon
Oh yeah,
Baby.
Whew.
Uh,
Yeah. It's crazy.
Temple of the
But you're
Dog.
going with 92, aren't you?
I thought about it. So
94.
I feel like 92 is my sentimental pick because that was when I first really truly paid attention. Like, we've talked about my first tape was REM's Out of Time in 91. So like 92 was like when we were locked into music. And I mean 92
Hmm.
has some incredible albums. You had Rage Against the Machine, you had Alice in Chains Dirt, you had The Chronic, Automatic for the People. You had Angel Dust. You had Stone Temple Pilots Core, Sonic Youth, Dirty. You had EMF's Unexplained EP, keeping it with what we've covered on the podcast. Check Your Head, 92.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do
Wow.
it because 94 is just so strong and
Okay.
has this was the heart of high school. I mean,
Hmm.
whoever you are, whatever
For
music
us,
was happening at the height of high school, that's what you're going to like. That's kind of your center of gravity, I guess. And so for me, it
it
is
is.
albums like Weezer's Blue Album, Jeff Buckley
Yep.
Grace, Portishead Dummy, which I didn't get into until later.
Oh yeah.
You have The Downward Spiral. You have Green Day's Dookie. You have Jar of
Hmm.
Flies by Alice in Chains. You have Soundgarden's Super
Hmm.
Unknown, which I wore out while
Hmm.
playing my Nintendo
Hmm.
Entertainment System. Uh, you have Nirvana's Unplugged. I mean, this takes you right back. You have Live Through This by Hole. You have Crooked Rain by Pavement.
Yeah.
Sunny Day Real Estate, Diary. You have Ween, Chocolate and
Hmm.
Cheese. You have Ill Communication by the
Mm.
Beastie Boys. You had Stone Temple Pilots Purple, which is my favorite album of theirs to listen to. Beck, Mellow
Yeah.
Gold, Tori
Oh,
Amos,
there we go.
Tori Amos Under the Pink, Aria
Okay.
Monster,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I know people love to diss Monster, but it was a thing. You had
First concert.
Tom, yeah, our first concert, which we went to together. That's a whole story that we'll tell another time. Tom Petty, Wildflowers, incredible.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
Morrissey, Vauxhall, and I, and two more: Breeders' Head to Toe EP and John Spencer
Okay.
Blues Explosion,
Oh yeah.
Orange.
Yeah. I mean, alternative music had come into vogue and it had kind of found its sweet spot. And 94, I mean, I knew you were going to pick it when you were reading off the honorable mentions there from 91 and 92, which begs the question of what happened in 93. But, you
Yeah,
know,
I wrote down a
um,
lot.
in utero?
Yeah, In Utero, like
In utero,
Bjork's.
92? Or?
In Utero was 93. Also Bjork's debut, Siamese Dream. Uh,
Yeah, there you go.
Tool, Undertow. I mean, there were a
Mm,
lot. To me,
okay.
it was not.
So,
Breeder's Last Splash was 93. Certainly strong.
okay,
I
I was
think.
wondering about that.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was quite a time.
Hmm.
That's the point. The early 90s, quite a time in music.
I'm trying to think of something from 94 without having a list or anything on it that is something that you didn't list. And I can't think of anything.
Yeah,
Certainly, viewers, let us know down below what of any of these years is striking you the most: 55, 66, 77, 94, or do we have a year left? Did
we
I
do.
get them
So
all there?
I have my number one pick, but can we do
Oh, we
some
do.
honorable mentions? I'll try to make this quick. I got to give an
Okay.
honorable mention to 1970 because
Okay.
1970 had Sabbath, self-titled, and Paranoid.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
And Paranoid, yep.
you had George Harrison, All Things Must Pass. You had Led Zeppelin 3. You had After the Gold Rush by Neil Young. You had The Stooges
Hmm.
Funhouse, Curtis. You
Mm,
had Joni's Ladies of the Canyon. It had both of your Grateful Dead albums that
mm,
you love, American Beauty and Working Man's
yeah.
Dead. Same year.
Country era.
Funkadelic. You had The Flame
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
Osmium and
Mm.
Total
Wow.
Destruction
First
to Your
Parliament.
Mind by Swamp Dogg. So 70, real strong. Another
Very nice.
another kind of I guess you could say like personal fave pick would be, where is it? 81.
Hmm.
81 did
Okay.
not have that many iconic albums, but listen to the ones that it does have. This is wild, just from the perspective of our podcast. So you do
Okay.
have Black Flag Damaged, you have
Sure.
Prince Controversy, and then listen to these. You had Night Clubbing by Grace Jones, you had
Hmm.
Don't Invite Me to the Depression by
Hmm.
Prismatic,
Prismatic.
and
Okay.
of course, Suburban Lawns. 81.
Nice. Yeah, and probably combat rock, I would guess, if I can just pull something out of my brain by the Clash. And then probably a lot of great uh true like early new wave, what would be labeled new wave at the time. I don't want to just start throwing out names without knowing it's 81, so I won't. But
Well, let me give you another
I'm sure
quick
there's a
pick.
lot.
This is my last honorable mention is 89. 89. The
Yeah.
tide was turning and you had the Cure's
Hammer.
disintegrate. Yeah. You had the Cure's Disintegration, Pixies Doolittle, 3 Feet High and Rising by De La Soul. You had Pretty Hate Machine. You had Stone Roses, Paul's Boutique, Like a Prayer,
Ooh.
Rhythm Nation by Janet Jackson. Incredible album. Operation Ivy,
Yep.
Energy, Bonnie Raitt, Nick
Ooh.
of Time.
Pick it
Come
up, pick
on,
it up, pick it up,
Casey.
pick it up. Here we go. That's a goodie.
But those are not my picks because
What
my
is it?
you can guess. You can guess what it is. You know it.
1948. Henry Mancini. I
You've already mentioned it.
have no idea.
The
Oh, okay.
year
91. Wait.
I'm gonna mention a few albums and you tell me when you figure it out. All right.
Okay. All right.
This is my best year in music history, which included such albums
Okay.
as Joni Mitchell Blue, Judy Sill self-titled, Janis Joplin Pearl, Carole King Tapestry,
71.
71, Alice Coltrane,
Yeah.
Journey in Satchidananda, Nick Drake, Brighter Later, Satori,
Yeah.
The Doors, LA
Yeah.
Woman, The Stones, Sticky Fingers, best album of
Yeah.
theirs, maybe.
Hmm.
Uh, Marvin Gaye,
Yeah.
What's
Great
Going
album.
On? You have Maggot Brain, you have Shaft, you have Who's Next, Master of Reality, Surf's Up by the Beach Boys, Sun, Moon, and Herbs by Dr. John, Tago Mago
Yep.
by Can, Country of the Blind by
Yep.
JSD Band, La Belle,
Yep.
Joy of Cooking, Closer to the Ground, Dolly Parton, Coat of Many
Yep.
Colors, Van Morrison, Tupelo
Hmm.
Honey, Curtis Mayfield, Roots, There's a Riot Going On by Sly and the Family Stone, Led Zeppelin 4, Casey, Led Zeppelin 4, Badfinger Straight Up, Isle of View by Jimmy Spheris, Ruth Copeland, I Am What I Am,
Oh
David
yeah.
Bowie, Hunky Dory, and last but not least, the Allman Brothers at Fillmore East.
Okay. So yeah, seven. I think most people consider 71 the year.
And why is that? I mean, I know there was Vietnam angst.
You know, people, as we look back now at the state of the terrible music industry and look back at the opulence of the terrible music industry of 71, at least the cash was flowing and they were spending it. It's just this era of opulence, and they
Yeah.
weren't afraid to go big on albums, and they went crazy, you know? I
Yeah, I
think
mean, I
that's
guess it
it.
was like coming out of, to your point, 66, 67, when it was Pet Sounds and Sergeant Pepper's. It was like, let's keep going bigger.
Went bigger. They just went bigger, and then eventually, the kind of some of the cash dried up, and the arguing and the typical nonsense. I mean, the music industry is one of the worst business industries ever, and I think it just peaked, and the money dried up, and they started getting stingy and bad, as opposed to just bad.
Well, uh, everyone, let us know what you think. Did we nail it? Did we get it right? Did we miss something? I mean, let's be honest, everything is pre-millennium here. So maybe there's a year that we missed in the 2000s.
So to recap here, Mike, you were help me out here: 71, 77, and 94.
Yeah, so third
That's in
place was
chronological.
77, second place was 94, first place 71.
And I was 55, 66, 77 in that order. We definitely picked the top 5 years. And we literally did because we both picked the same year for 77. So we have the top five.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty strong, but I'm willing to
Yeah.
listen if someone thinks there's another better option out there.
There's no way. And you don't get to not include 55. If it wasn't for 55, none of this would exist. You darn hippie kids.
Well, this was fun. I do love a good ranking. Um, I do. So
This is the
anyway,
next 2,000 views.
yeah, yeah. So coming up next, over my this shoulder, we've got Television Marquee Moon. So stay tuned for that one. And
Oh,
thanks
yeah.
for listening.